So this is it without the effects. Sounds. So that is absolutely nothing. So then I'm just going to add the effects chain that I've got in here, and we'll see the difference to the sound that that makes. Okay, so this is pretty much all post-processing. Hello guys, this is just a kind of quick video here. A couple of people asked about bass sound design in Bitwig. So I've got a couple of examples here. This one is a like a bass growl that is made with a wavetable synth, and then I'm processing it with pretty much all Bitwig effects bar one that's free. And the second one is just this is a saw wave. So it's just a saw wave coming from the grid, and then all the kind of movement in the bass, that kind of interest in the bass, comes from just the stock Bitwig effects. So we'll have a listen first just to the first sound, and then we'll kind of go over some of the post-processing stuff. I know that this sound is kind of like sounds like it's straight out of 2012, so don't make fun of me. But I think it's good to do these kind of sounds that we're all like super used to get used to the effects and how they sound. So here it is. So yeah, it's just that kind of thing. So basically what I've done here is I'll just turn off all of the Bitwig kind of processing here, and I'll start with the sound. So it's just the drums are just like samples that come with the stock Bitwig library. So this is how the sound. So that's the sound without the effects on, and then this is the sound with the effects on. So it's just kind of a cleaned up, kind of more polished, I suppose. So the patch that's in pigments here, so I'm using Arturia pigments for the main patch. It's just it's the standard kind of modulating bass. You've got your wavetable, and there's a filter with a resonance boost, and that's going through. I think all I'm doing in here is just a tiny bit of overdrive. So you can do this in Serum or any other kind of wavetable synth. There's a bit of a wave folder on it as well. But I suppose what really makes a lot of these sounds is the post processing. So in Bitwig, the way that I do it is I'll just turn these effects all off. So first of all, there's just a bit of EQing. I'm just pulling out the sub frequencies because I've got a sub layered underneath, and then I'm just kind of basically changing that to taste. This is all kind of standard stuff. So that's just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. And then the next effect that I've got here is the resonator bank. I use this all the time. It works really well on sounds by itself as, like, you know, the kind of main event effect, and it kind of really it's good for kind of bringing a different character out of sound. So we'll hear that with and without as well. So this is without. So it's pretty subtle, that effect, but once it goes through the distortions over here, it kind of gets amplified a little bit. So I'll leave that on there. And then chorus, it's just for some widening. That's just to widen it up a bit. I've got a bit 8 here. This is really cool. So this primarily I used to add top end. I'll modulate the mix value. So you can really hear that that effect is I've got the clipping engaged here, so that's giving a bit of distortion, and that's really adding to this this resonator bank effect, so that you can really hear that coming through. I've also got this noise, this like quantize function turned up, and I've got the noise turned up, and then I'm modulating the mix so that when it's as the filters are opening up, we're getting more brightness, so this noise is kind of mixing in. It sounds kind of makes the sound really. It gives it an awful lot more presence. So that's, you know, that's a real big one there. The bit 8. I love this. This is one of my favorite stock effects in Bitwig. It's really good for this kind of stuff. Then that's going into a distortion. So again, that's really bringing up the effect that the resonator is having. So if I kind of take the resonator off while the distortion is on, it's really giving an awful lot of definition to the sound. And the resonator really helps with that. You can kind of boost these peaks to taste, so I've got a little bit of a boost in here in the distortion just to kind of emphasize a particular frequency. Just want to play around with that sort of thing. So then next I've got a EQ again. Probably just trying to bring in some frequencies again. Yeah, just trying to thicken it up a bit really. So that's not particularly important. And we've got blur. This is another thing that you don't get in a lot. This is like a delay. So it sends different really short delays to the left and right channel. This is just to add more kind of width. If I was using this in a song, to be honest, I would probably high pass this effect. I'd probably just put it on the higher end, but for the purposes of this, it's just kind of to add the effect. Again, it's quite subtle. And then finally, I've got an OTT on here. The sound that OTT adds is like a really specific kind of sound, and when you're looking for that OTT sound, it's kind of the best way to do it. You could recreate the OTT is a free plugin, by the way, by Xfer. I'm sure a lot of you probably know that, but you could recreate this in Bitwig with the Dynamics plugin on a multiband, but there's no point trying to reinvent the wheel really when you're kind of looking for this sound, and this plugin is free. So I'll just turn that on so you can see the difference that that's making. I've got the mix turned down slightly. That's actually bringing down the volume quite a bit as well. And again, you might want to boost that up a little bit. So I'm primarily using that to add punch. It does pull up some of the artifacts, say from the delay. Usually in the audio afterwards, I'll take that out. So you can kind of hear the artifacts of the delay there. You do want to be aware of that when you're using OTT. It is an upwards and a downwards compression, so it will bring things through like that. And then finally on the end, I've just got an EQ. Just a kind of subtle EQ. And then at the very end, there's just a really short reverb. Again, that's pretty subtle, but again, just kind of gives it a bit of space. And obviously that wants to be separate from the sub that's layered. You don't want any reverb on your sub bass. So the only other thing really in this project to talk about, the drums are literally just samples from Bitwig, just pulled in here. And the only other thing I suppose that might be of interest is I've got this like little filler bass thing here. So it's like a little glitchy kind of thing. So we'll hear that in context with the kind of gives it like a squelchy effect. The way that I do this is I'll show you. So I'll just start. So let's say you've got any kind of a synth. You could even do this with like the Bitwig stuff, but we'll go with, say, faceplant, just because it usually opens pretty quickly. I'll show you here now. So what I do for this is I'm just gonna solo this track here. So what I do for this is I just put in a note, usually pretty short. I'm not sure what key we're in here. Okay, so the way that I go about this, basically, I've just got a note in here, just a quite short little note, and I will just loop this section just so we can hear what's going on. And then I'll go into, so you may have like made your presets before. You might have like a lot of bass presets that you like, or even sometimes it's fun to just go through the ones that you don't really know even, or that come factory. You can get kind of cool results doing this as well. But what I do is, say I'll pick a random preset. So we've got that. Maybe not that one. We need to bring the pitch of this down a little bit. Okay, so that one's pretty cool. So what I do then is, if you hold Alt after you drag a clip, it'll convert it directly to audio. So I'll just convert that to audio, and then I'll switch to another one. Okay, maybe not, but we'll try that one as well. So I'll do the same thing. I'll just drag that down there. And we'll try this one, Lily bass. Yeah, sure, maybe not, but we'll just for the purposes, drag that down there. And we'll pick a different one. So yeah, basically I just go through and randomly pick some. That one's probably not that good. Let's see what's here under bass attack. Maybe not. Okay, we'll take that one. So again, same thing. Just Alt, dragging. So now we've got this. Just loop the whole section. So, actually, should have made the notes a bit shorter, but that doesn't really matter. So we'll shorten these up and say put them all in this little area. And we'll just see, that kind of might be glitchy. Yeah, so you get kind of, you can get better results. Obviously, you'd process this sound then afterwards. But you've got kind of a little kind of glitchy moment there. And there's a little bit of clicking because we've cut the clips. One thing I will say, as I see some people come in when they've got loads of little clips like this and they come in and fade. But one of the really cool things about Bitwig is if you select all of these, over in the sidebar here, you actually get a fade in and fade out, and you can set the value specifically. So it's really good if you're doing a lot of cuts to not have to fade every single clip. I do see some people going in and doing that, which is, I don't know, that doesn't sound like any fun to me. So now you've got your little, and then you might want to process that a bit, put some EQ on it and some distortion and all that. But that's just a really good tip for coming up with those kind of glitchy kind of basses. Okay, so the second thing I've got for you here is even an even simpler project. This is just one bass sound, and normally with this kind of music you're not going to be using, you're not going to be using one bass sound, but just for the purposes of this. So all this is just a grid device. Sorry, I'm getting a bit lost here. So yeah, it's just a grid device with a saw wave, I think. Yeah, it's just a saw wave. There's absolutely nothing else happening in the grid. I've got the gain coming down a bit, but that's it. So it's just a saw wave coming out, and all of the processing that's happening to this sound is just the effects that are on here. So I've got like a little rack of effects here, and these are all Bitwig effects as well. So we'll just hear the end result of this whole rack. So this is it without the effects. Sounds. So that is absolutely nothing. So then I'm just going to add the effects chain that I've got in here, and we'll see the difference to the sound that makes. Okay, so this is pretty much all post-processing. So you can see, there's some feedback there because I'm using the resonator. You can see that the effects that you can get just with these stock effects is pretty insane. So what I'm doing here really is, it's really simple stuff. It's just I'm modulating this high pass filter here, and this is just the Bitwig ladder filter. So let's just pull up the modulation that we've got there for that. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So we've got some modulation on that. It's just some basic modulation in that kind of a pattern and stuff. And then I've got this peak filter here. So I'm modulating that as well, and I'm pretty sure I've just copied. So I've just done a different kind of a pattern there. And this peak filter, so if we turn off, okay, there's a lot of effects here. We're gonna turn them all off, so that we can kind of see the sound progress as we get up there. Sorry if this video is getting a bit long. I might cut it up into 2 parts or something like that. But it's fun to learn things. I don't see a lot of videos about this kind of stuff on Bitwig. Maybe I just haven't seen them, but maybe somebody will find some of these tips useful. Okay, so the first of all, just a really super resonant high pass filter is the first effect that we've got there. Second effect, so it's a peak filter, and they're kind of playing against each other, so we're kind of getting some vowel resonances. All I'm modulating here is literally just the cutoff. Then we've got the resonator bank. I use this all the time, so let's see what this is adding. So it's adding this. The resonator bank adds this kind of crazy resonant sound. And that doesn't sound so good itself, but once you put that through some distortion, it starts to sound pretty cool. Now, still sounds kind of weird, so I'm putting that through another filter. So this is a low pass filter. And this is kind of what's creating the motion. So this is what's giving us that wow 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 daka daka. So we're getting that motion from the automation that's on, that filter frequency. Sorry. So that's what's giving us our motion. Now there's some pretty crazy stuff going on there, so I'm kind of just EQing it to take out some of the madness, and I'm taking out the sub because I don't really want that to be interfering with the sub bass that we're going to layer underneath. So now we've got that. Then I'm using bit 8 again, pretty much in the same way that I used it on the other bass. So it's doing some distortion, it's adding in that noise in the high end, and I'm modulating that so it's kind of coming in. Then we're phasing it. So I'm modulating that frequency again. Again, all of that stuff is so this is the modulation on the frequency. It's just a taste. You just kind of mess around until you find something that sounds kind of cool. Then I'm adding a flanger onto that. The flanger is just static. So so as you kind of move that around and feed it back, you get a different kind of a sound. So just kind of play around with the time and the feedback until you get a result that you like. Then that's going through dynamics. Only reason I'm doing that is to add, basically to kind of tame the volume differences before I send it through more distortion. Sometimes if you're getting massive differences in volume, you're going to get a result that you're not going to like when you put it through distortion. So I'm about to hit the amp. So I'm hitting that, woo, and now you can hear the that's a result of the resonator bank. So the the feedback is coming through. Now, you may want to take that feedback out. You can do that with a gate. To be honest, if you're bouncing this down to audio, which you will be an awful lot of the time with this kind of sound design, it can be interesting to leave it in there because it creates overtones that can be really interesting. The only thing you want to make sure of is that you're not getting any frequencies that are going to interfere with the sub. But sometimes it can create a cool effect. So I tend to want to leave it in there, but there are ways of getting rid of it as well. So you can hear the sound's really starting to get its character now. I don't think I'm modulating it. No. So that's just going through the Fold A. This is a great distortion plugin, this amp. I have actually got a little bit of the cabinet going as well, just to give it that kind of a cabinet sound. I don't always use the cabinet. You can just use this as a standalone distortion, and it's brilliant. Okay, so after the distortion, we're going to chorus. This is to widen the sound. Then blur again is doing a similar kind of a thing. Now the only thing about the blur is with this kind of a bass, I wouldn't use this as a main kind of a bass, like your primary bass. The blur can give you some issues with mono compatibility if you're not careful with that. So I'm kind of overdoing it here for what I would do on a main bass, but for a kind of a filler sort of a sound, it just gives you this really cool dimension that you can't really get with any kind of other effect. It's kind of similar to the Haas effect, really. Then we're going through another EQ. So what I'm doing with this EQ is I'm trying to bring out the metallic quality that the resonator is giving me. So at the beginning, I could talk about how I tuned these resonators, but that would be probably pretty boring, and the video is getting pretty long anyway. So I tune these so they're kind of deliberately dissonant, because I'm looking for that kind of metallic texture that they're going to give to me. And I know once I run those through distortion and emphasize the right frequencies, you're going to really get that sound. So I am emphasizing the kind of dissonant metallic quality because that's what I'm looking for. So that's that. And then the last thing, the last thing in terms of sound is another OTT. Again, free plugin. This is it's multi-band compression. With an awful lot of these kind of heavier bass sounds, because you're doing so much crazy stuff with filters, you really do need to multi-band compress things to keep things consistent. Otherwise, everything sounds kind of everywhere. So there you go. That's what that's doing. So I find with this kind of stuff, if you're looking for a particular sound, it's best to have the OTT on the end and kind of mix into it. You can do this kind of multiband stuff without OTT. There's tons of multiband compressors. You can create one pretty similar to this in Bitwig as well, with just the stock devices. Yeah, the OTT compressor just has its own kind of sound. And then I've got a tool here. I'm just using that to tame the volume because volume's pretty crazy. So the final result that you're getting is that. Now, the ideal scenario with something like this is you would bounce it to audio and you would cut the clips that you want. It's a pretty unruly sound to just leave in your mix as MIDI, but that is how you kind of create that. So you can hear that kind of massive difference. You may not like this sound, but maybe some of the things that I've done there would maybe give you an idea for how you might want to approach it yourself. So it's a pretty massive difference that you can make with just the effects. And I'm not even using the real kind of selling point of Bitwig, which is the modulation system. I'm not even using that here. I'm just using the basic effects and some modulation. So so again, that's the sound with the effects. So that's a pretty insane difference. The other thing you might want to do with a sound like this that's longer, if you're going to chop it up, is I would do that same technique again, where I kind of alt drag it out here. Actually, the best one is if you open up this side panel here. I do this all the time. And let's add a audio track. So we'll render this out. So if you drag this and hold Alt, you can render it into the side panel here. So you've got it here. Sweet. And then let's say we want to make some changes. So ideally you would probably want to change the automation, but I'm not going to do that because, you know, it's a bit too time consuming. So let's say we want to change, let's change something in the resonator. So let's just bring the mix way up, change around some of these frequencies. So yeah, let's say we like that result. So let's alt drag that out there. Now we've got that. And now let's make a big change to this distortion. So let's like boost that up there, and yeah. Now let's change this to maybe a different kind of filter. Let's go for bandpass. Okay, that sounds pretty bad, but let's take that. And then you can do a similar kind of workflow here where you've got all of these different sounds now that you've bounced out. So we can take these, let's just mute this one, and whoops, I'm just gonna take that. So let's take these and drag them into the project here, and now we can say like cut between them. So take that, take that, take that, and say maybe we want to go use this one as the main one, and maybe for a little bit pull this up here, and then maybe what I want to do, I'm just trying to keep this pretty concise because I know the video is getting pretty long. So, and then say let's just move to a different part of this one, and then maybe do this. So let's just see what that might sound like. So I'll pull all of this into I've got a sidechain group, I think there's a sidechain on this. Yeah. So yeah. So that's, I know this is a pretty long video. That is just some ideas that maybe some people might find interesting that I use. If you'd like to see any more videos, subscribe or let me know what you might like to see. I do have kind of a lot of little tricks that I do that I think might be kind of interesting. If you have any questions or anything about that, let me know. If you thought that this was useful, let me know. If you thought it was completely useless, let me know too. Thanks for watching, and I hope you got something out of this video.